Tymon Koleshinsky recently got third place in the World Championship Finals with a 4.98 average of 5. So here are the reconstructions of all of his solves. So this is the first scramble of the average, and Tymon actually solves on green cross. But I know a lot of people solve on mostly white cross, so if you want to follow along with the white cross solution, you can scramble with the blue side on the top and the white on the front, and you should get an easy white cross. So basically what Tymon does for this white cross is we have a solved red cross edge. We have to put in this blue one here and then set up all the other edges so that it is easy to insert them. And how Tymon does it is he holds this on the right side and inserts the blue one with R prime, B prime with his ring finger right there. And that solves the blue edge piece. And then we just have to solve both of these edge pieces with R prime, F, R2. And that's a very simple cross solution. Then we have the first F2L pair. And Tymon sees in inspection that this corner is going to be solved. So we can just solve this edge and the F2L pair using keyhole, which is basically where one of the corner or the edge is solved, and then you solve the edge by moving the corner away. So with D, and then inserting the edge, and then bring the corner back. But you might have noticed that requires a rotation from where we finished the cross. So instead of D and rotating, Tymon does a wide U. And what that does is it's the same thing as a D, except it also orients this edge. So you can put it in with RU moves, and then does a wide U prime. So that is the first F2L pair. Next we have a simple F2L pair, orange-green. The corner is over here. Just pair them up like that and insert. And then another easy F2L pair, red-blue, move it to the back like that, pair them up, and then insert. Then we finally have the last F2L pair. And what Tymon does is pretty interesting. You might think, oh, it's the green-red here and then the white corner on the top. You move here, and then you pair them up like this, and then insert like this. However, that is not the best solution. And that is because you will get a dot cross on the top, which is very slow, and Tymon does not solve dot crosses. Instead, he does ZB method. And what that means is he always solves F2L in a way that the top finishes with a cross, or he does an algorithm to set up a cross on the top, and then he solves the entire thing with one ZBLL. So the next step is actually called ZBLS, where he sets up a ZBLL with the last slot. And how he does it is, it's just an algorithm basically, and that solves the last pair, and we get the cross on top. And now Tymon knows ZBLL, so he does the ZBLL for this case. And that solves the cube, and that is a 461 second 3x3 solve in the first solve of World Championship Finals. So this is the second scramble, and he actually solves on white cross this time, so you don't have to change the scramble to get white cross. And it's a pretty easy scramble, but he also makes an X cross. So basically, the blue and orange cross edges are solved, and we just move the green center down here so we can align the cross piece, and that also solves the red cross edge into the right spot. But Tymon sees that this corner is attached to the red cross edge, so that means when we solve it like this, it stays attached, and that means we can solve an X cross. So this corner is solved, and when we move it here, it's still solved. It's solved into the correct position. So if we solve this edge, which is the corresponding edge, the blue-red edge, into this slot, and that would be like this, then we do a D move that aligns the cross and gives us an X cross. Now, there was something more advanced which I saw that I think I know why he didn't do it, but basically he could have made a double X cross. So in this position, he immediately solved this, but this corner is attached to this edge, and if you align these, then you can also solve this corner and then solve this edge and make a double X cross. I think he didn't do that because maybe it was too many moves, or this edge isn't oriented and it's pretty hard to solve it. So he just solved it like this, and that gave him an X cross. And for the next pair, this is pretty hard to spot, which is why it's important to plan your first pair during the cross. And so this is the F12 pair. Takes it out like this, and then rotate and insert. And then this is the next one, pretty simple. And then for the last pair, again, he does ZBLS, so he solves this pair while putting the cross on top. And that is like this. And then sledgehammer to align the cross on the top. And then he gets a really easy ZBL. Actually, I know this one. But he actually falters a little bit, and this is where he loses a little time. Oh my gosh, nice pronunciation. He loses a little time because he does this to recognize the ZBLL case, and then he does this again to solve it, and that loses a little time. But it's a pretty easy ZBLL, and then AUF, and that is a 4.89. So this is the scramble for the third solve, and Tymon does it on yellow cross, and I think you white cross solvers are good enough to follow along with yellow cross, so we're just going to go with this. And so this blue edge piece is on the green side, and the green one is over here. So we want to move this to the side, and then insert both of these, and then insert the orange one, obviously. And also, very important, Tymon sees this F12 pair, which he definitely wants to preserve. So he does D prime to move this, and U. So D prime U at the same time. This is to align it relative to green, and this U move is to move the orange edge away in order to prepare it to be inserted. Then he inserts both of these at the same time, and that is done like this. And then Tymon inserts this cross edge, and that kicks out this green-orange F12 pair. So he inserts this, and then he aligns the cross. And that is a free pair for the first pair. So he inserts it, but he also probably saw an inspection. These two pieces, the green-red F2L pair, will be aligned like this once he solves that. So he directly goes into solving the second pair while doing the first pair, and that is with a move cancellation. So he does L2 here, and then moves the corner above the edge, and then pairs it up like that. And then we do U prime, and then insert. Then he solves both of these, and he actually rotates here, which isn't required, but you'll see why. So this red color is facing us, and it's on the side, so that means you can solve this without rotating or doing F moves. But Tymon rotates here, and that is probably to align this edge here. It might have been a mistake, I don't know, but it's probably to orient this edge, not align it. Orient this edge so that he gets an easier cross on top without having to do ZBLS. So he rotates here, does U, and then splits up both of these, and then he rotates again. So that's 2 rotations for an F2L pair, which the trade-off is technically worth it because now you don't have to do ZBLS, you can just solve it. So then we solve this pair here, and then these both, pretty simple. So no ZBLS required because we directly get a cross on the top. And then there's this ZBL. And that solves the cube. And that is a 5.31 second solve in the third solve. This is the fourth scramble, and again he does white cross, and this is one of the easiest crosses I've ever seen. So we have both of these already solved, and these are aligned correctly. We just have to do a U2 and then insert both of them. Now, you might get the question of which one do I insert first? And what I would have done is not smart, and it's not what Tymon did. I would have done it like this. And the reason for that is because the finger tricks are very nice. Like if you have to do an R2 like this, like R2 prime, then you can do F2 like that, and it's pretty easy. But Tymon is even better, and he does F2 instead. And the reason he does that is he sees this corner and this edge. And if you do an F2 and then do an R2, that pairs it up. So he solves this pair into the back, and then he already saw this in inspection, so he's just going to solve these on the left side. So split them up and then insert them into the back. So that's 2 back slots, and this is like very easy look ahead. So do a U, or not a U, a rotation, and then a U, and then solve both of these. Pair them up like that, and then this gets paired up because of that. This is so lucky. So insert, and then he doesn't just go like this because that doesn't give him a cross on top. Instead, he rotates and then does hedge. And you can technically do this from that position. You don't have to rotate, but I think it's better for finger tricks if you do it like this. And then we have a ZBLL. I totally didn't mess that up. And that is a 4.74 for the 4th solve. And this solve guaranteed him a sub-5 average in the final. This is the 5th and the slowest solve of the average. It was a 5.8. And he also solves on the blue cross for this one. So just scramble it with yellow on front and then green on the top, and you'll get an easy white cross. So what Tymon does here is, it's a pretty easy scramble. You can see both of these are solved. And we also have a free pair here. So Tymon aligns the green center with the green cross edge and then puts it in, and then solves the orange cross edge from the right so that he can kick out this F12 pair and preserve it. And instead of aligning the cross with D, which leaves him with an unoriented edge, which he has to solve with the rotation, he does U wide, and that aligns or orients this F12 pair so he can solve it into the back easily. Then he sees this edge and this corner, which is pretty hard to spot, pairs them up like that, and then U, R prime, U2, R to insert it into the back. And then you can easily spot this pair, so he just rotates RU prime, R prime to set them up, but he can cancel into the insertion. So RU prime, and then R2 to pair them up and insert. And then he has this edge and this corner, and this looks like a terrible case, but he's also doing ZBLS. So he's just going to do an algorithm which solves it all together. And that also gives him the cross on top, so he's free to do ZBLL. And you might be thinking, how is this the slow solve of the average? The cross was super lucky and very efficient, and also the F2L was like pretty average. Well, the ZBLL is where everything falls apart. So to recognize, he does a U2, and then he does a U to start the algorithm, and then during the algorithm, he does U2, U2, U2. And what basically happens is he does the R, and then U2 is the next move, and then the next move is also an R, and then also a U2. So he does that U2, but he accidentally skips this R. I think that's what happened. So he goes on to the next U2 after that, but then he realizes that he didn't do the R move. So he has to do a U2 again to undo the U2, which he did, and then do the rest of the algorithm. And then AUF. And that is the final solve of Tymon Koleshinsky's average in the World Championship Finals.